I think that says we're live on Facebook.
I think we're all good to go. Well, welcome.
Yeah,
guys.
Here we are.
Welcome. This is our first live Zoom joint venture together to talk about the famous and fabulous film Danger Close, which was shot on the Gold Coast in Queensland. And if any of you don't know what the story is about, the Danger Close is a film of the Vietnam War and a sequence that happened, or an event that happened in 1966, where 108 Australian and New Zealand inexperienced and young soldiers walked into a Vietnam or Vietnamese rubber plantation called Long Tan. And the mission was led by Major Harry Smith, and they encountered 2,500 Viet Cong and Vietnamese soldiers, which led them to many casualties and running out of ammunition. And it's the story of their survival, their courage, and their ability to survive. And it shows that the Australian and New Zealand soldiers are made of much great stuff. So I'd love to introduce to you now Creve Senders, who is the director of the film, Stuart Beattie, who is the writer, and Luke Bracey, who played Bob Buick on the show. And welcome, guys. So
thanks for having us.
Pleasure. So Creve, I guess we'll start with you, and it'd be wonderful to hear your sort of journey through Danger Close, when you started on the project, and right through until, you know, obviously directing the film, and then to pre and post production, and to now after the film's been shot.
Okay, well, I'll try and keep it short because I know we're on the clock. But yeah, my journey with this film began back in 2011. I just finished making a film called Red Dog, which you may know about. And I was approached by a producer by the name of Martin Walsh with a script about the battle. The script at that point was called Long Tan. And I had a vague recollection of the story. I'd read about it somewhere, I think in a magazine a few years prior. When I read the script, I was just blown away. I just couldn't believe that this was a true story, because it was written like a full-blown action adventure. And the fact that this was all true blew me away. And so I started reading more about the actual battle, and was completely hooked and signed on. And then eventually was able to get the script to Martin and I, and were able to get the script to Sam Worthington and to his producing partners, Michael Schwartz and John Schwartz, and we all teamed up and started to try and get the film off the ground, which was a very, very long mercurial journey. And Stuart joined us at, I can't remember when you came on, but it was quite a few, 2014, yeah. And so Stuart sort of came on and became involved, because Stuart's also been a huge, follower, I guess, or has been involved in, the story from a very early age, haven't you, Stu?
Yeah, I first read about it in high school back in the 80s, and ever since then I had just always wanted to make it into a film. So I'd been researching for years and years, just reading all the books and just kind of thinking, how I would do it if I was ever given the chance. And then when John and Michael came to me in 2014 and said, long, and I basically gave them a whole long speech about it, and they were like, would you be interested in doing it? And I had some time, and this is honored to be able to do it. And then from there, it was about 5 years of raising the money before we got on set, right?
That's right. And like any film is a miracle, but this one was a particularly unique miracle because it's a sort of film that just doesn't get made in this country. And the budget ended up being somewhere north of 24 million, which is, I think, unheard of I don't think there's been an Australian independent film with that budget made since 1982 or 80. So the film really sort of is quite an extraordinary, as I said, a miracle that we were able to make it and at the level that we did. which started production. Yeah, we started production in early 2018. So that was probably, I was on it by that point for 7 years, trying to get it off the ground in various shapes and forms.
Wonderful. And so Luke, what's your experience with Danger Close? When did you first become involved with the project?
Yeah, I was sent the script. You know, as actors, we're kind of the last pieces of the puzzle. Everyone does a lot more work than we do, kind of in the lead up to it, and then we kind of are the last kind of pieces that we put in, and then we get to work on doing our job on it. But I was sent the script. It would have been the beginning of 2018, and it's one of those scripts where you read it. And you can't stop it. I mean, that's just a credit to Stuart. He's one of the best screenwriters, not only in Australia, but in the world. And that's kind of really how he brings you into it. I mean, the kind of, the action starts, I think, about page 15 or 20 or page 1, really, and it just doesn't stop. And for me as an actor, I was aware of the Battle of Long Tan before this. And but then to get into the minutiae of it and to kind of really understand exactly what happened, it was just fascinating. And I couldn't put the script down. As soon as I did, I wanted to do the film, and was lucky enough that John and Creve and I had been attached to another film previous, and so we had a relationship already. And so when I got the opportunity to get involved, I jumped at the chance. To the character, the man who Bob Buick is such an interesting guy, and did such amazing things during this battle. So just to be a part of an Australian story was a real blessing for me. It turns out that this is my first real Australian story that I've been able to make, and for it to be my first one, I'm very proud of that fact.
That's great. And you got to spend time with Bob, didn't you?
I spent some time with Bob after filming, because it all kind of happens quite quickly for us. And also, you know, it's one of those things. Everyone has their different ideas of what happened during that battle, and we wanted to kind of just streamline. I think Creve and I talked about just like streamlining it, not getting too worried about so many different voices, but yeah, being able to meet Bob and his family after, and kind of have them acknowledge, you know, and enjoy the film and enjoy my portrayal of him was a big relief for me, to tell you the truth. I'd never portrayed a real person before, and to meet him after and meet his family and to have their blessing was, as I say, a relief and a real honor, actually. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Fantastic. So actually, I've got a question for you, Stuart. After I read the script the first time, and like Luke just said, it, you can't put it down. If you're going to say one thing to us, like a evolving screenwriter, on how to write a true story with so many characters and so many layers and so much emotion, how do you connect with a story like that to write a script like that?
Yeah, it's really hard. It was one of the hardest scripts to write for me. I know at one point I knew the names and ranks of all 108 guys and which platoon they were in, which section they were in. I could tell you in every one of them. I just had to get to that level of intimacy with it and able to be able to wrap my head around it, to be able to put it down on the page. So, and after 20 years of research and thinking about it, you know, so I had a lot of time to bake that cake, and you know, and then we worked on it, and just a lot of hard work, a lot of research, and just kind of being driven by wanting to get it right, or as close to right as possible, to honor these guys and what they did. You know, that I think that made us all kind of up our game and deliver the best work that we could.
Right, that's great. And I guess, Creve, my question, even though I was there for the whole process of making Danger Close, is that I'm always really intrigued, and I was really intrigued by the way that you managed to interpret such a complex script. So tell us the process of how in pre-production you start from A to B to work that out.
Well, you start with the script. And as Luke said, we had a great script. Stuart, I mean, I liken it to music. I liken a great script to a great score, something, you know, like notes on a page. And Stuart writes in this very beautiful, very lean, very clear, very crisp style. There was no fat. Everything was there. Every beat, every detail I needed as a director was there. So what we did, the wonderful, beautiful Jamie Leslie, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, the Thursday D, we just sat for weeks and weeks and weeks and just broke that script down line by line, and continually kept on breaking it down. So even within a scene, which was quite complex, there'd be quite a lot of action happening within the scene, Stuart's writing was so beautifully compartmentalized, we were able to just sort of break it down into bits. And that's the only way you can do it. I mean, all these, when I've read about directors like Sam Mendes and talking about the Bond movies, or, you know, they always talk about you just shoot the day, or you just break it down. The minute you think about the whole thing, you're sort of fucked, because you just freeze. So John Schwartz, producer, we'd always say it was like eating an elephant with a spork. You know, you just had to kind of take small little chunks and chew not fast, so you don't choke, just keep on chewing. And that was what we did. It was the only way we did it. So that's really how we did it. And obviously working with you, Keir, you could see that, you know, we were able to, Jamie was very great at, because I learned so much from him because he was such an experienced AD. He was saying, listen, we'll work with this amount of extras and we'll be able to do this for this. So are you okay with that? And I slowly started to see a methodology form through these conversations, through these weekly, daily, hourly conversations we had. And we were able to start compartmentalizing your department, art department, wardrobe, makeup, armory. It all became very, very sort of sets of subsets, and within those subsets there'd be sidebars and sets, and we were able to kind of just at any moment zoom into it and look at one piece and deal with that piece and go, well, that's going to not work, we've got too many pieces here, let's simplify it. And then we zoom back out again and look at the whole. So it was this constant sort of zooming in and out of the script. And the script was just everything, because it was the roadmap, it was the blueprint, it was the balance sheet, it was the whole sort of, it was all there. It was just a matter of just trying to kind of break it down into a schedule.
I think one of the most beautiful things about filmmaking is that you're never alone. You know, you're always surrounded by people, and they're talented and they're experienced and they're good, and never solve any problem on your own. You can always, you know, you've got a great team around you. And on Danger Close, we had, you know, the best of the best, I think, you know, in virtually every department, you know, and everyone, you know, giving it that extra mile, going the extra mile and giving it everything they've got. And all that translates, I think, onto the screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to add on that as well. I mean, we shot this film in Queensland, obviously, both in Kingaroy and Nerang, and the crew that we had, which was, you know, a majority Queensland crew, they were absolutely, to each individual, to each person, absolutely extraordinary. Everyone, your team, Keir, the extras, the Vietnamese extras we had, to the catering, to everyone, to every standby props person, wardrobe person, every person was there, 100%. I've never experienced anything like it. It was really quite magical.
And I guess one thing about what I found quite sort of uncanny was the likeness of Kingaroy or Ruland's Polonia plantation to the rubber plantation, which was quite fortunate that Queensland has an arrangement like that for us to be able to shoot in an environment that looks almost identical. We were pretty fortunate there, I think.
Yeah, no, we were very lucky. It was.
We couldn't have made the film anywhere else, especially that Nerang location where we had like 6 or 7 locations all on the one location. Yeah. You know, it was one of the places, like a backlot, a big living backlot, the river, the base, the hill, you know, the first contact. You know, there were so many locations in that one area, and that allowed us to actually get the film made without having to keep traveling to a bunch of different locations.
Yeah.
I think another thing that helped in Queensland filming wise was we filmed. When did we start? May in 2018.
You know what?
April?
It was actually it was actually a week after Anzac Day. So it was literally this week.
Yeah,
this week,
so
2 years ago.
yeah, so we started then and we filmed through to July, I believe. And in Nerang and the Gold Coast this time of the year, and the film is solely outside. I don't know if we had an interior at all. We had no interiors. So to have that reliance and that like need to get our days, as Creve said, that's how you make these films, is you just shoot your days. The weather was unreal at this time of the year. Like, we were so blessed with we didn't get rained out. I don't think we lost a day to anything. And to film an entire movie over 7-8 weeks outside and to not get rained out is an absolute blessing. And one of the things that you can't plan for, but that you just cross your fingers. And you know, a place like Kingaroy and the Gold Coast at this time of the year, there's kind of no better guarantee of anywhere in the world to have kind of pretty cooperative weather and conditions.
Yeah, definitely. So on that note there, Luke, what was your favourite moment? What was your highlight on the film?
I mean, the highlight of me was just truly, it's hard to nail it down to one, but just truly being part of it. You know, it's a great honor to be involved in a film like this and to be bestowed with the responsibility of telling this story. I think there was I've been lucky enough to be involved with a film, another kind of military war-based film in Hacksaw Ridge, and there's something that comes, speaking from the actor's kind of troop perspective, there's a camaraderie that comes to it. I think the when you're making a film about such important kind of subject matter and real people, there's a real loss of ego between everyone. I think there's a real responsibility that everyone feels, and there's a mateship and a camaraderie that comes with it. I think the people that we got to meet was probably one of my favorite things. As I said, we got to work with, I don't know if we mentioned earlier, but Sean Barry and all his work with extra specialists. All our extras in the film were Iraq and Afghanistan veterans who also helped build the sets. And to meet those guys, to meet Sean, to meet all those people, that was probably one of the highlights for me. I'm still in contact with Sean. I talked to him the other week. I'm still in contact with a number of the veterans that we worked with, and they became mates of mine beyond the filming and beyond the movie. So that was maybe one of the best. You know, the people you meet on film sets is always probably one of the things I enjoy so much about making films, is the people you get to meet and the places you get to go. But especially with this one, it was truly meeting, you know, veterans and people that have served and people that have kind of sacrificed so much, and just, you know, the perspective they give you as people. And I think, you know, in times like we're in right now, that perspective is sorely needed. You know, for society right now, and our job in society to be heroes is to stay at home. And these guys, their job as heroes was something quite more extreme than that. So the perspective that these stories can give us, especially in times like this, is important and quite poignant, and can help us through moments like this. You know, we're all doing it, you know, tough in our own ways at the moment, but to see and hear these stories kind of really puts in perspective that you know, sitting at home, we're not in battle, and that's a really positive thing.
Yeah, yep. And Creve, I guess same question. What was the highlight of filming for you?
Boy, actually, look, the whole thing was a highlight. But there was one day, I mean, Stuart was there on set. I don't know, Luke, if you were there, but it was the day we were shooting the Little Paddy scene. You know, the concert. The concert. That was extraordinary. There was something about that day. There was something about the fact that here we were. This film was finally being made. We had something like 150 extras. We were recreating a real event that happened. We had the playback happening of Little Paddy and Cold Joy and the Joy Boys singing these two songs. We shot them, you know, we just had them perform, and we just had multi-cameras on them, and we were filming them, and there was something electric in the atmosphere that day that was just, it was literally like we'd gone back in time. It was literally like 300 people had got into a time machine, and we were back in Nui Dat on August 18th. There, it was just, I've never had it. I even get chills thinking about it right now. It was such an amazing couple of hours. It was just the most wonderful, beautiful experience. And I think, and what was great, everyone felt it. There was something really powerful in the air that day. Yeah. It was really quite something else. It was quite extraordinary. And what I love about whenever I watch the film, when I see those scenes, that magic I keep on being reminded of that magic. So it's very satisfying.
Yeah. There were about half a dozen veterans there that day.
Yeah, that's right. It was extraordinary.
Concert 50 years earlier, who were there seeing the concert 50 years late.
It was surreal. and some of them had tears in their eyes.
Yeah, you just, yeah.
Well, that's very cool. And I think, Creve, you've got a question there. What are the key components to ensure that you capture the performance in the film being a true story?
Ultimately, it's what Luke was alluding to before when we were talking about the character of Bob Hewitt. You can't, in a film, a film is a film, a dramatic film, a dramatization is a dramatization. And we kept on use this term that I think Ridley Scott used when he was making Black Hawk Down. We're not taking a photograph, we're creating a painting. So it's an approximation, or it's a sort of an interpretation of the truth. And you can't be literal, you can't be, it's not a documentary. So you have to interpret characters, and you have to interpret the reality for the story you're telling. And the beauty of Stuart's script was that it borrowed from the truth, but it had its own dramatic, emotional truth as a story. So it was this dance between, look, we're telling this is a real person that still lives, Bob Hewitt's still alive. But for example, with Luke, we went, let's just stick to the colors that we're gonna paint with. Let's not go out of that palette. Let's just stay with those colors and just be true to what we've got in front of us. And accumulatively, the story will hopefully have a truth to it. Because it is based on a true story. So, but let's also just follow our instincts, our dramatic instincts as storytellers, and as a director and as actors. Let's just do what we know in terms of our little universe here on the set and in the story. Let's just be true to that. And if it's true there, it'll resonate, and it'll resonate for an audience. Yeah. I hope that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. And I actually have a question for you as well, Stuart, just on similar to that question about the writing, is you said earlier about the research that you do. Do you get in touch with, the veterans? Do you talk to the people that were involved when you are writing?
Yes, specifically for this one, but yeah, you want the three words: author, authority, and authentic. All have the same Latin root. Right, they all come from the same word. So you want to be an author, write with authenticity. You have to be an authority. So for me, becoming an authority on the subject matter is hugely important and a lot of fun. And the more you get to know the world of your stage, the better story you can tell on that stage. So yeah, talking, reading all the books, looking at interviews. Everything I could to kind of get in the heads of these young men and try to understand, what they were thinking, how they were feeling, and how they were managing to survive. It's hugely important. And like I say, it's a great part of the fun for me.
Yeah. And I guess that's sort of true for us in the stunt department, to be able to, read the script and then interpret in a realistic fashion how the action should be portrayed. And it's the same process. We research events, we research war. We obviously researched a lot on Vietnam and the events that took place there to create an authentic feel for the action. And we were lucky that also on the film we worked with the same performers that we had on Hacksaw Ridge, so they were already sort of tuned to an environment of being on a battlefield. So, you know, for us, it's the same sort of process to design the action. We need to be able to make sure it feels authentic to the story, obviously truthful to, you know, especially being a true story. We're not over dramatizing what we're doing. We're trying to create it as closely as possible to what happened, you know, in the event. So it's you know, I guess between the three of us, it all culminates to what, you know, Luke and the other actors then portray and put on the screen, which is pretty good. So
Yeah.
Luke, I think there's a question here for Luke down there. If you want to have a look, see.
What does it say there?
Your character research, I suppose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, Creve talked about it just before. You know, Stuart gave us the paints. Stuart gave us the canvas and the paints. And my job was to just not paint by numbers, but just take them and put the shading in there, really. I mean, a lot of the hard work was done for me in that way. But the one bit of great research that I was able to get my hands on, which was invaluable, was the Australian War Memorial has a series of interviews with veterans from World War II all the way through to present day. And it's basically Bob Buick had done one of those interviews. Now, these interviews are, I think Bob's was maybe 4 or 5 hours long. And it basically it was Bob telling his whole life story, from being born in South Africa to moving to Perth when he was a young child, and then all the way through. So that was fantastic to have the ability to sit down and see someone tell about their life. Was probably the best bit of research that I got my hands on, and probably the one thing that really guided me, just in terms of not necessarily, I didn't want to try and sound exactly like Bob sounded voice wise or anything like that, but the sense of the man you get from someone telling their story by themselves is really what I took from that. How he the importance and the onus he placed on certain things and certain moments of his life was really telling, and, you know, certain stories he told from his childhood kind of affected some things the way I approach certain aspects of his life and his moments in the Battle of Long Tan. So that was the best bit of research that I got my hands on, or could have ever asked for, actually, and dare I say was maybe more valuable than if I did sit down with Bob and ask him a bunch of questions, because I had this resource of Bob volunteering it and doing it himself and doing it on his own terms. So that was a key piece of research that really aided me in help portraying Bob's story and the moments that he had in this long term.
We're also very lucky that we had Martin Walsh, the lead producer, had made a documentary, a feature-length documentary in 2005, which Sam Worthington actually narrated, and he interviewed all the you know the at that point the men that were still living, from, you know, Maury Stanley through to, obviously, you know, Harry Smith, and that was an incredible resource that we could all glean information from. So we were very lucky that we had that. And, you know, that documentary is really quite an important part of the reason why this film exists, because that was really the sort of the template from which we built our film.
Wonderful. Now, Luke, I do have a question for you, which was from my observation on some of the days that we did on set. Some of those days were so intense, with bombs and rain and blood and people flying through the air. Do you ever, like, as an outsider watching a film being made, like as a crew member watching you guys do your thing, and there's bombs going off and you can feel the concussion and the sound is deafening, do you ever lose yourself in there? Does it ever feel like, it doesn't feel like I'm an actor right now because this is really real? Does it ever feel like that for you?
There is something, as you talk about the vibration, the concussions when we have these big explosions on set, and this, as an actor, you feel like there's a lot of pressure. It's kind of like playing a sport in a way. We have like one go or a couple of goes at these takes, at these scenes. We only have X amount of bombs, X amount of explosions, X amount of time. So that pressure to get it right and to not screw up is something that you feel, and then that bleeds into when it is action, when it is go time. You really do lose yourself. I mean, you are concentrating so hard on getting things right, but then to have these physical external stimuli kind of hitting you, it really does help. I'll never forget, we had this big cable cam shot of the artillery encroaching into on my platoon's position, and we're all lying on the ground, and these were the biggest explosions I've ever experienced on set, including Hacksaw Ridge that you did hear. These bombs were insane. These pyros. We were lying on the ground and we had one go at it, and I remember distinctly. And it was, no one wanted to screw up, and we're lying on the ground, and I had a couple quite close to me, and hearing them come down the line and seeing them come down the line, and feeling them next to us, it was scary. I was scared, and like feeling, as you say, feeling the concussion through the ground, the debris landing on you. That was, and the pressure of getting this one take right was exciting and terrifying all at the one time. In probably, obviously nowhere close to truly being there, but there is this, the pulse rate goes up. Absolutely. You feel that, you anticipate it. There is an excitement and a fear of failure, a fear of everything, a fear of getting it right as well. So those external stimuli help so much. There's these big explosions and that cable car shot. I've never felt anything like that. That was, I felt the rumble for sure.
Yeah, that was. I remember you fought for that shot, Kira. I'm so glad we did. It was such a great.
Yeah, it was epic.
Yeah, it was
in this morning. It was pretty damn good.
Great shot.
I'll never forget though. There was one day, just to back onto Luke's thing. I just remember one day when we were shooting the artillery. We had these two howitzers going that were kind of rigged up with hydraulics, and we had those going. We had a drone in the air. I had 2 cameras on cranes. 6 other cameras going, including a phantom camera, and I was looking at the bank of like 7 monitors or 8 monitors. And there was a moment where I just had to sort of step outside and just piss myself laughing, going, "This is insane! I can't believe I'm doing this. I better get back into it and do it." So there was one moment there in terms of that thing where I did lose it, but I just had to. I just wanted to step outside for a second and just look around and go, "This will never happen again in my career. I think this is just extraordinary." And it was an amazing day because those howitzers were going and they were pushing through all of us, and just the force and the energy. And you're thinking, "Fuck, that's only 2 howitzers going." They had something like 40 going during the battle. Oh my God, what those men would have endured and faced and remembered. It was just very, very sobering and quite extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, I think you brought together a massive and an extraordinary piece of filmmaking with the wardrobe, the special effects, the sound, particularly with, I know the film got some awards for its amazing sound and score, and with everyone's effort together, I think, we're left with a masterpiece that'll be with us forever, for a very long time, and for everyone to enjoy and watch in the future. And I guess my comment is, if you haven't seen Danger Close, it's streaming on Amazon Prime, and I reckon I watched it again this morning, and even I've probably seen it 4 times, 5 times now, and I sat back this morning seeing things that I hadn't seen in the film from the last times, and I just go, wow, this is a cracker. This is an absolute cracker, this movie. So thank you, Steve, Creve. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Luke, for sparing the time today and coming and sharing some experiences. It's very cool.
No, and thanks to Screen Queensland, really. I mean,
Mm.
we wouldn't be here obviously for this Zoom meeting, but the film wouldn't have existed without their support. They were extraordinary. They really were. They backed us, and they're a big reason why the film is what it is and is around now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much, Screen Queensland. Fantastic. These Australian stories are fantastic, and we need to hear more of them. And we have such great history and culture and experiences in this country. And if we can tell more of them, that's a fantastic thing. We've got a great country here that's unique and of its own thing. And telling our stories is crucial.
Yeah, we need to celebrate what makes us great, you know? And because I think those guys who walked into that rubber plantation that day represent the best of us. And the guys, the people are still out there doing that kind of thing today, you know? And I think we should all be aware of what we ask of our military when we send them overseas to fight, you know? And I think, there'll be more long terms in the future. And so I think it's important to know these things and that how they happened and why they happened. And so hopefully we don't repeat, the same mistakes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, cheers, guys. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day. Everyone
Good
stay
to
safe.
see you all.
You
Good
too.
to see you all.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye.